What's up, guys? I'm Nobody Special. And the entire country of Lebanon has just lost power. The entire national power grid in Lebanon has failed. This is a not so subtle warning to the entire world that it is long overdue to get your financial house in order. You ready? Hit it. Thank you for joining me. I'm Jack Gamble, and I'm Nobody Special. And what we're witnessing right now in real time is a failed state going on in Lebanon. All right, the entire country is basically failing. And the latest development in this is the whole country lost power today. The national grid has outright failed in Lebanon. After years of struggling under corruption and unstable governments and banking crisis and the most recent state of hyperinflation, we finally reached a point where things are just outright, basic infrastructure has just fallen apart in the whole country. Now, before we get into this, folks, I have to ask you, could you please like this video, subscribe to my channel, hit that notification bell. It really helps me out. It helps me to keep this channel growing, and I'd be forever in your debt. Now, with that, I want to get into the story a little bit, and we are going to shrink my big fat melon of a head and get into this article here. The Lebanese power outage will last for several days, according to government officials. This is at Reuters. Lebanon has no centrally generated electricity after fuel shortages forced its two largest power stations to shut down, a government official told Reuters on Saturday. Now, I have to preface this. Lebanon is a very small country, so two power stations is enough to bring down the whole national grid. However, an entire country losing power cannot be overstated. That this is a big deal, folks. And this is an important warning of things to come if we don't get our house in order here in the West. The Lebanese power network completely stopped working on noon today. It's unlikely that it will work until next Monday, or for several days, the official said. The state electricity company confirmed in a statement that the thermoelectric plant at the Zahrani power station had stopped. The Deramar plant stopped on Friday. The shutdown of the two power stations had directly affected the stability of the power network and led to its complete outage with no possibility of resuming operations in the meantime, the statement said. The Lebanese army agreed to provide 6,000 kiloliters of gas oil distributed equally between the two power stations, the state electric company said in a statement reported by National News Agency. This quantity will secure power in Lebanon for 3 days, the statement added. Many Lebanese normally rely on private generators that run on diesel, although that is now in short supply. So what's going on? How does a whole country lose power? How could things get so bad that the whole country is in the dark? Well, this is what happens when your money is broken. And Lebanon's money is broken. The lira is becoming worthless. It's already basically become worthless. It's lost all of its value. This is a warning of what real hyperinflation looks like. Now, we've talked about inflation a lot on this channel. We're talking about like your garden variety margarine inflation, right? The CPI reads of 3%, 4%, 5%. That's just your garden variety inflation. What we're talking about in Lebanon is inflation of 120% or 110%, all right? The Lebanese lira has lost 90% of its value this year alone. Keep in mind, 90% of its value. Imagine your life savings. The number doesn't change, but you lose 90% of its value. That's what's happened to the Lebanese people. And this didn't happen overnight, all right? This is a long developing situation, and I want to get into it a little bit about what happened. What it basically was this: the Lebanese Central Bank was running a foreign exchange Ponzi scheme. Now, a more qualified economist could probably give you a more granular description of what happened in Lebanon for the last few years. I'm going to give you the real rapid version, okay? But there's no shortage of reading on this subject, and it's a very interesting subject, and I highly encourage you to read more about this. But basically, this Lebanese central bank was run by absolute crooks, all right? I'm talking about people that would make Jerome Powell blush. These guys are 2 or 3 tiers above your kind of crooks that we have here. And what they were running was a Ponzi scheme. You see, the Lebanese lira wanted to lose its value for years now. It's really been in decline for any number of reasons. But the Lebanese central bank has insisted on maintaining this 1507 to 1 peg to the U.S. dollar. Right? $1 was exchangeable for 1,507 lira. And the Lebanese bank will refuse to budge on this exchange rate. Not one bit. They have planted their feet on the ground and they're saying, no, absolutely not. One US dollar is worth 1,507 liras, not more. Even though on the street, one US dollar can get you 24,000 lira, the Turkish Central Bank will only give you 1,500. See the difference here? Now, the problem is the way that the Lebanese Central Bank maintained this peg was basically by running a Ponzi scheme or an exchange rate Ponzi scheme. You see, what they did was they borrowed US dollars and euros from the commercial banks in Lebanon, and they gave them favorable interest rates in exchange for the loans of these dollars and euros. And the commercial banks lent the euros and the dollars to the central bank in exchange for interest. And then the Lebanese Central Bank sold those dollars and sold those euros to buy lira. So what they were doing was they were borrowing Western currencies and using it to prop up the value of the lira. Now that works as long as you can keep the flow of the dollars and the euros coming. Now we're starting to look a little bit like a Ponzi scheme, aren't we? Well, the Lebanese commercial banks, which were lending the dollars and lending the euros to the Lebanese Central Bank, said, wow, we're getting this favorable interest rate from the Lebanese Central Bank. We need to attract more dollars and more euros from our people. So the Lebanese commercial banks started giving very generous interest rates in exchange for dollar and euro deposits to their banks. Now, you've heard me say a couple of times on this channel, if you see an interest rate that looks too good to be true, it's because it is. Okay, when you see stocks that are yielding 10%, when you see DeFi apps that are promising 15% risk-free, it's baloney. All right? There's no such thing as a risk-free 10% return. Doesn't exist. Much the same way with these Lebanese commercial banks, they were giving 8% interest rates on savings. A savings account was paying 8% interest if you deposited your US dollars at a Lebanese bank. Now think about that. Here in the US, you were probably getting about 0.1% interest. Or maybe if you were lucky, a half of 1% interest on your savings in US dollars at a US bank. In Lebanon, they were giving 8%. That's a good year in the stock market. A savings account? Come on. So what they did was they were convincing the Lebanese people to loan their dollars to the bank. And then the bank would loan those dollars to the central bank, and the central bank would dump them and buy lira with it. So they were borrowing Western currencies and buying their own currency to prop up its value. Well, that worked great right up until about March of 2020, when the Lebanese government missed a payment on a euro bond. The Lebanese government defaulted in March of 2020 on bonds that were denominated in euros. Now that caused a problem, a couple of problems. Number one, now the Lebanese government is no longer able to borrow dollars or able to borrow euros because they didn't pay them back. Now their credit's no good. Now the only thing they can borrow is their own lira, which is artificially supported by borrowed dollars and borrowed euros. That's the first problem. The other problem is when that euro bond defaulted, the Lebanese people started to get spooked, and they had a good old-fashioned bank run on their hands where they realized, hey, something is up with our banks. Something is up in our government. I better go to the bank and get my dollars out. I better go get my euros out. The problem was they went to the bank to get their euros and their dollars, and they weren't there. See, the bank didn't have them. They had loaned them to the central bank. So then they look over here and they say, well, where's my dollars, central bank? And the central bank says, well, we don't have them. We sold them to buy liras. But that's okay. Don't worry, everybody. Don't worry. We're good for it. We can't give you your dollars back, but we will happily give you back the same value in our own native currency, the lira, at the official peg rate of 1,507 lira to the dollar. Problem is, by this point, the unofficial exchange rate was well over 2,000. So that dollar could get you 2,000 lira on the street, but at the bank it could only get you 1,507. So the next thing that happened is these commercial banks in Lebanon all start putting capital controls in place. These are not handed down from government. These are the bank's controls. They start limiting withdrawals to 200 US dollars a month. The problem is they're not actually letting you withdraw dollars. 200 US dollars a month in lira at the official lira exchange rate of 1507, which by now everybody recognizes is BS. You seeing how everybody was robbed here? Everybody was robbed because they were using their money to prop up their lousy native currency, and they were selling their money away. And then when the wheels fell off the bus, they only gave them the official exchange rate. However, while these capital controls were in place and people were supposedly only able to withdraw about 200 US dollars in official numbers, somehow around 30 billion US dollars managed to flee the country. As in, I don't know, maybe some corrupt central bankers or some bank CEOs or some wealthy government individuals, they managed to get their money out of the country in US dollars, in euros, safe overseas in other accounts. Their money's safe. Everybody else takes a haircut, right? Whenever you see a politician or a banker or some CEO going on the TV talking about how we all need to pull together and we all need to make sacrifices and these are tough times, remember, they are not experiencing any of that difficulty. Remember, when the power goes out, they've got backup generators at their house. Do you? Hopefully you do, but not everybody does. So just to give you an idea of what this looks like here, we're going to shrink me again. This chart here is showing the annual CPI numbers in Lebanon. Now, these only go up to August of 2020, so this isn't even the most current data. 120% year-over-year inflation rate. And that number has only climbed since then. And you can see that big jump from March to April of 2020 after that Eurobond defaulted was really when this mess started. And here, just as a warning to the West, this is the Lebanon's Lira currency in circulation outside of its central bank. Does this chart look familiar, folks? Do you see what happens when things got tough and they started with the money printing? And now here they are, their currency is becoming worthless. And if you doubt me, all right, if this chart doesn't worry you, this chart should, because this is the US M2 money supply, or the M2SL, the new seasonally adjusted M2 money supply. We've done the same thing here, folks. We've done the same thing to our currency. Maybe we haven't run this Ponzi scheme. We've kind of done the opposite, right? Our central banks have run this kind of scheme to suppress interest rates, to keep them artificially low, to keep this debt balloon inflating. See how that ends up. But, folks, what's going on in Lebanon right now? A whole country losing power. I mean, life is just miserable. You're talking about millions of people that have just been sent back in time 200 years, right? When the power goes out, the running water goes away. Now you've got basic human needs, sanitation, disease, medicine, everything, right? These people are losing everything. Their money has become worthless. This is a warning to the West. This is what happens when you mess with your currency and it becomes worthless. This is not a game. This is not an academic debate, all right? This is a warning. Lebanon is taking this hit as a warning to show the rest of us of what this could look like. And if you think we're kidding, we're already having rolling blackouts in China. They're talking about uncertain energy supplies in Europe right now. All of the energy futures are in deep, deep backwardization. The ports are backed up. The supply chain is failing. Folks, the money is breaking, right? And, you know, there's this saying, people like to say, oh, money is evil, or money is the root of all evil, and, oh, you worry too much about money. Why do you talk so much about money? Money is cooperation. Money is civilized, all right? It is a way that two people who know virtually nothing about each other can very rapidly reach an agreement on an exchange with a certain degree of trust, even though these two people have no idea who each other is, never met before, and yet you're able to freely and rapidly and efficiently make that exchange. Why? Because you both trust this thing called money that you're using as the arbiter of that transaction. When that money breaks down, everything stops. Everything grinds to a halt. That's what's happening in Lebanon right now. And we're seeing early signs of it here in the U.S. All right. And just as a warning, I want to play this little clip. If you follow this channel, chances are you've probably heard this clip.
Where does it come from? Do you just print it?
We print it digitally.
So we as a central bank, we have the ability to create money digitally, and we do that by buying treasury bills or bonds or other government guaranteed securities, and that actually increases the money supply. We also print actual currency, and we distribute that through the Federal Reserve Bank.
We create it digitally. We just digitally will it into existence. If that didn't make any sense to you, if that makes you scratch your head and say that doesn't make sense to me, don't worry. It doesn't make sense to anybody because it doesn't work. Lebanon is proof of that. Folks, what's happening in Lebanon right now is a warning to the entire world. All right? It's a warning to individuals. It's a warning to families. It's a warning to communities, to states, to nations, to the globe. Get your financial house in order. Get your stuff together before the lights go out, before everything stops working. All right? And again, we're starting to see it. We've got modern industrialized economies with rolling blackouts. We've got congestion at ports. We've got supply chains breaking down. We've got food prices on the verge of going up. Things are starting to fall apart. Things are coming unraveled. All right? The gears are not turning as smoothly. The machine is starting to make noises that you know something is going wrong. Folks, all of these things that we're starting to see pop up around the world, all right, these are not isolated events that are causing inflation. All right, this is inflation causing these events. The reason why we can't get a new car, the reason why we can't get chips for new cars is because of inflation, because we dumped all this money in the system. We threw the whole equilibrium out of balance. The reason why the ports are congested, the reason why ships' anchors are hitting oil pipelines, spilling oil into Huntington Beach, because we dumped all that money into the system. All right, the reason why China has rolling blackouts and why Europe is seeing 500% increases in their utility bills is because of inflation. The reason why food prices are about to go up is because of inflation, and the reason why the entire country of Lebanon has just lost power is because of inflation. These things are not transitory. These things are not going away. I don't know how bad it's going to get, but be ready for it. Anyways, guys, in the off chance I haven't completely ruined your weekend with all of my FUD and my doom and gloom, my chicken littling and sky is falling and tinfoil hatting, I hope you guys have a good rest of your weekend. I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank you for watching this video. Please don't forget to thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, hit that notification bell. I would be forever in your debt. It really helps me out. Folks, in the meantime, live small and dream big.